good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's talk titled Activate Corporate Purpose with Automation for Good. My name is Mike Ashley. I'm a research analyst with IDC, and I'm joined today by Bobby Patrick, CMO of UiPath, and my colleague, Angela Salmeron, who's the lead for the Future of Work practice here at IDC. Let me just do a quick recap. So there are two key trends actually happening in the workplace at the moment. So one is an increased trend towards automation. Here at IDC, we've seen huge numbers of automation processes making their way into all kinds of companies, into all verticals, into all sizes of companies. And I might quiz you on that in a bit, Bobby, how you see that from your perspective. The other trend we see is a change in strategy. Companies are moving towards a more purposeful, led strategy that allows them to find their place in society. I think the way you need to look at it is if someone asked themselves, what would the world look like if my company didn't exist tomorrow? Then you've defined what your purpose is. And it's becoming quite important, not just to stakeholders in forms of, those who pay, customers, or your financial stakeholders, but also is requested by governments and most importantly, probably by employees. So with that, I think what we need to explore today is sort of where are the synergies between these two, between automation for good, and the shift towards more corporate, purpose-led activities. Angela, can I start with you? Why is corporate purpose more relevant now than it ever was before? I mean, what's happening here? What has changed?
Yeah, what has changed? Well, it changed a lot, you might agree, in the last few years. And it is true that how many companies, more than we actually want, are doing purpose washing for the reasons also that you probably stated at the very beginning. Is such a, is so much demanded by customers, investors, that why not? With your mission statement, with a good branding, you can do so many things. But what does it mean, purpose? Purpose means really the reason for being, why your organization, your company exists in the first place. And with that, obviously, you have to think, right, if my company tomorrow no longer exists, what is the void and what is the gap that my company is going to leave in the market? So that this is very much your purpose and your value as a company. The other thing you need to think of is the North Star, right? With purpose, you're going into a direction, a goal. And actually, to your question, right, why purpose is so relevant now, right? Look at the environment we are, so uncertain, right? I mean, look at the economic outlook for next year or even this year. Purpose and North Star is great because it can give really guidance to companies and to employees when there is this uncertainty. And the final point, and then I'm going to let Bobby to give his opinion as well. The last point, which is probably the most important one, is that a mission statement is not enough, right? I'm very much into what is being called the stakeholder capitalism. Probably you've heard about the 3 Ps, the people, profit, and the planet. Stakeholder capitalism, obviously, it's been on for many years, but probably a good milestone happened just before the pandemic. I think it was August 2019, when the Business Roundtable, I think is 180 top CEOs in the US gathered together and said, you know what? We need to create long-term value. We need to create sustainable business models. And when the pandemic then obviously just accelerated the whole thing. And that's why purpose is so relevant. Bobby, I'm sure you have another opinion as well.
No, thank you, Angela. I love to think about UiPath in this case, right? I'm a marketer, so obviously branding is important, but I joined the company about 5 years ago. RPA was unknown. Automation really, as we know it today, didn't exist, and UiPath was not high on the awareness chart either. And when we kind of set out with our founder Daniel Dinez, we had a vision, a robot for every person, right? And we talked about our mission and things, but we were very clear on the need, for a purpose, why we're here, why our people are here, and I think enterprises today now more than ever want to identify with, their new employees want to identify with, the purpose of a company, right? It defines the culture. So our purpose, kind of, as we defined it as accelerating human achievement, actually became the center for how we think about our business. It's led to our, automation for good efforts. It's led to how we think about the importance of helping reskill and build, customers and the next generation of workers and the existing generation of workers and the older workers as well. And everyone then within UiPath has consumed them with this idea that we're here to help accelerate human achievement. So I think very much that, purpose is not a branding exercise. You have to live it and believe it. Of course, it starts with the founder and the executive team. I'd love to just mention one person, a guy named Marcus Buckingham will keynote at our signature event, UiPath Forward 5 in September. And the reason we wanted to have him on stage is he's really been focused on this idea of a love work organization. And his view is to attract and retain the best people. We must redesign jobs around a simple but powerful concept, love for the content of the work itself, right? And I think to love what you're doing, you have to believe in your organization and your company. And so, for us then, and I think we're a great example of the power and importance of a purpose. And, that's taken us from, a very small $20 million company when I joined to, over $1 billion. So it's been good for our results as well.
Mm. Bobby, do you mind just to illustrate what this would look like in real life? Can you give us a case study, an example of automation for good? What happened in a company that actually was brave enough to go for automation, and what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. There are many use cases for automation for good. Certainly health and well-being are one of the most popular ones. One kind of personal to me that's very recent, working with a large hospital in New York City. One of the things that we realized, a large customer of automation, one of the things that they realized was that automation could be applied to the speeding up the diagnosis and treatment of cancers. It turns out that the workflow around the current hematology processes for tissue samples takes 3 to 5 days with an accuracy of 62%. And you can imagine people who go into any hospital and have to wait to find out, particularly what they might have in this, the stage of a cancer or et cetera. Working with this hospital, they've identified actually that applying automation and AI together, that they think they can get that workflow down to 2 days with an accuracy of over 90%.
Impressive. So
what's happening then is automation for good in this scenario is helping to speed the diagnosis and ultimately treatment of cancer. And I think there's examples of even helping speed, the ability to help, find cures as well and coordinate between multiple hospitals around the world.
Yeah.
It's just one example, right? There are many of them. There are many during COVID, especially that really shine the light on automation, because there are so few tools in the tool bag that can really, drive a fast time to value. You can really build an outcome quickly. And so automation provides that really unique capability. And so we saw some great examples at Mater Hospital in Ireland during the pandemic, where they were able to free up nurses to spend more time with patients, right? Mm-hmm. And so you get these stories; they're everywhere now. And so kind of wrap it up as health and well-being is one big bucket. Another is climate and sustainability. One of my favorite examples there is an automation I just saw last week that could quantify within Microsoft Outlook the number of emails that you have and identify the ones you should delete. Like, for example, Zoom, all these Zoom emails for like Zoom has started, all those will actually all drive a carbon footprint, right? Mm-hmm. And albeit small on each email, it adds up. You probably have, I don't know, Angela, 10, 20, 30,000 emails. Maybe you're not, maybe you're more organized than I am, but I have them all in there. And the reality is they'll sit on a server somewhere and, drive, carbon emissions, right? And so this team built a robot that actually makes suggestions, on what to delete, to reduce that negative impact. Imagine if every worker around the world ran that robot. So, in that case, sustainability is a huge use case. So there's a lot of great examples, social impact examples, and encourage anyone to go look at, on our UiPath.com. Automation for good is a theme that runs throughout.
And I suppose the beautiful side effect of that is, as an employee, when I see these things happening, my emotional link to the company I work for is actually, solidified, I would think. Angela?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. No, let me say as well, again, in this pursuit of driving automation for good, the UN SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. As Bobby, as you were talking, I was thinking about all the different goals where there's climate action, good health. I think the UN SDGs could be a very good source of inspiration. And I was thinking, I can't remember whether it's goal 12 or maybe 16, and it's around justice and good public institutions, because again, automation for good is not just for private organizations, it's also for the public sector. And Bobby, you mentioned the health sector. And I was thinking about how automation could be really instrumental in many of the e-citizen programs today roll out. With automation, obviously, you can really be with people in their life events, whether it's marriage, moving house, or unemployment. So again, automation, as you said, Micah, we are at the very beginning of a beautiful journey.
Now you're alluding there to employees and their engagement. How do I make sure that I build this purpose-led strategy from the bottom up, that is not perceived as something that's prescribed by the bosses on top? We think of all the rules that we have out there, all the targets we need to achieve, looking at ESG regulations in different countries, etc. Most business people, I as an employee, would think, are just ticking the boxes and sticking this away as actually an expense. Rather than something that creates business. How do I change A, the mindset of the employees, and B, how do I, link the experience of the employee with that strategy that it seems is absolutely necessary nowadays? Angela, do you want to go first?
Well, Micah, you know this very well, right? We've been working together around the Great Resignation, and our surveys show that 1 in 3 employees, this is just statistics from April, I think, are actively looking for a job, and after pay they are looking for working experience. To the point that Bobby mentioned, people are looking for a job that is meaningful, that is purposeful. They want to bring the best of themselves to the job, and this is not good talent. They want to bring their best qualities, the best human qualities to the job. And obviously, to the point around automation, that will involve, removing those mundane, mechanical, repetitive tasks that are part of your job away, so that, again, you can apply your creativity and all that growth mindset into your job. So again, validating, the key role of UiPath in making jobs more interesting. Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah, I have a question here, Bobby, if you don't mind. I mean, we also find in surveys that even though, IT decision makers are very keen on automation, no question, what they still perceive as the biggest challenge is sort of reluctance by employees themselves. They're still very much scared that they're going to lose their job. So how do you tackle that?
Well, first of all, I agree with Angela. I mean, we know that bored workers are 2 times more likely to want to leave their jobs, right? Look, I think we tackle that best by showing real live customer examples, letting customers and employees of organizations worldwide talk about what the beauty, the great thing, the liberation that comes from removing repetitive, mundane, boring tasks. I mean, certainly it all started really in finance organizations, where at the end of every month and at the end of every quarter, they're called the month-end close or quarter-end close, finance employees would spend the weekends and late nights closing the books. I mean, they're away from home, away from their families. Now with automation, through finance transformation, right, we've proven that we can give back their employees their weekends and their evenings, right? They're more satisfied, happier workers. The book closings actually happens much faster. So you kind of get this excitement that builds among employees. I remember I went to a large government organization. I was on this floor, and this was a few years back. And you would think public sector would be perhaps the most concerned about losing their jobs, right? Just because they generally stay at their organization, maybe for their entire career. So it was on this large floor where all of these employees, there had to be 50 employees, in ties, did this job every day where they download these artifacts and create these dashboards. And we created a robot to do some of that work for them. And we all went into a conference room. It was all of these workers. And it was the one of the best employees built who was the best at doing it the quickest. And then there was the robot doing it. And in 15 minutes, the human had downloaded these artifacts and created 2 dashboards. The robot had created 15 dashboards, right? And I was worried what that would come across. What happened was the entire room erupted. Thank God we no longer have to do this work ever again. So I think it's that experience that you feel when you see it and you feel it. It's very, very liberating. And I think that's kind of why automation in the last few years, I think, has been such an exciting thing. It's why, employees people graduating from business schools now, they're graduating with UiPath as their top tool in their toolkit, no longer Excel or, maybe an analytics package or something, right? Because they know that they're armed with, with being able to do their work better, on day one. And that's pretty powerful.
That's young ones coming in. So let's talk about those who, as you said, might have been sitting on the same seat for the last 20 years. Not for nothing are we talking about a skills gap that's sort of not going to get closed in the next 10 years. So what do we do? I mean, as an employer, I'm happy for my employees to use automation to free them up, but, do they have the skills to actually do anything else but file papers? Is it my job to help them move on? What needs to happen here? Either of you.
Well, I'll start, Angela, maybe then hand to you. Look, it's the job of all of us because the pace of digital transformation is happening much faster in terms of, kind of the industrial revolution, right? It took 30 years for farming to really, change the way farmers had to build skills in the early 1900s. This is happening much faster. So we have to all be part of this, right? Us as a strategic partner, we have to promote workforce readiness and education and do a lot to drive that. An employer needs to understand the changes. But I'll give you another example. HP, a great customer of ours, they had 8 employees. This happened early on, and I realized the excitement here. 8 employees who every day came in and they processed payments on portals at banks all around the world. They were about 99.95% accurate in their work, right? Which was about $15 million in inaccurate payment processing, right? So percentage-wise, pretty good, but 15 million still pretty large. With automation, it went from 8 workers to 1 worker and some robots. They achieved 100% accuracy, which is great. But the interesting thing was the 7 other people were reskilled, upskilled, and put into new roles. They're now actually more valuable in their organization. They're much less likely to be affected by, a reduction in the downturn. So I think, it's example after example after example like that I think is the power. I was also at a hackathon, and I'll hand to Angela, with Singtel, where they brought in all kinds of workers. I was on a weekend, and the winner of the hackathon for automation had been with Singtel for 30 years. And she was thrilled because something she had to do for 3 hours every week, she no longer had to do. So again, it can be nervous. There is obviously some demystification that has to happen.
Yeah.
But largely speaking, it's quite positive in the results.
Yeah. Angela, how do we, move people from being afraid of losing their job to becoming an augmented worker, someone who does their job better because they're supported by automation or does something much more interesting?
Well, I agree with Bobby, right? We need an ecosystem. We call them in IDC, this sort of ecosystem of excellence. And it needs that multiple or multi-stakeholder approach to resolve the digital divide or the skill gap. Just because we are analysts, not to give you some statistics. Again, from that survey we ran in April, if I remember, about 60%, this is 60% of companies are saying that they are not prepared to reskill their people simply because it's not a priority, they don't know how to. And again, just to reinforce that we need that multiple stakeholder approach to resolve the skill problem. I was listening to a radio program last night. It was just specifically to the UK, but it's interesting that the UK is not progressing, developing as fast as, counterparts, Germany and France. And the main reason is primarily skills and company not investing in intelligent technologies, such as automation. So yeah, reskilling is important, but number two as well is about addressing the fear and mistrust that some employees have against automation, a mistrust that has been simply done in the media and for the wrong reasons. A good change management program can turn that mistrust into believing that automation could be a force for good.
Yeah, and probably
if I could jump in, I just want to add
sure.
one thing. I recently met Azim Azar. If you get a chance to read his book, The Exponential View, it's really interesting here. But one of the things he concluded in his book was, through his own work, an analysis of Fortune 500 businesses, he determined that automation was never the cause of job losses. Job losses actually were the result of companies that didn't automate, right? They fell into a virtuous cycle of decline. So it's really interesting when you look at the data, of companies that do automate and make these investments and drive happier and engaged workforces in those who don't.
I think I have to agree on that one. We see that. So decision makers don't fear about job losses when it comes to automation. What they really want is reskilling, upskilling, making the job more interesting. But it's employees where we still have to do the work. Sorry, Angela.
I have some statistics on that, and Micah, you know the statistics really well as well. So yes, Bobby, absolutely. This is again from the survey we ran in April. 30% of organizations are saying, yes, thanks to automation, my employees are doing more interesting jobs. So again, that high value add is there in their jobs. And another, I think it's about 1 in 3 companies were saying that by introducing automation, they are reskilling their people. So again, good.
Yeah.
It's in the good direction.
Right. So just to come to a conclusion here, to some actionable advice. I know UiPath and IDC have worked on a manifesto. I'd love the two of you to talk about that for a minute or two, because I think what listeners really and viewers really want to know is, if I want to tackle this tomorrow, what are my first steps? How do I link automation for good with turning myself into a purpose-led company?
Yeah, so yes, IDC partnered with UiPath last year, and we developed a number of things together. One of them being a white paper, and you're right, Micah, as part of this white paper, we published a manifesto, which I encourage our viewers, listeners to really read the white paper and the manifesto in particular. It's only five principles, but for those companies, again, that want some guidance about, again, how to drive automation for that good purpose. Again, the manifesto, I think, is a good way to start. Yeah. We also developed, as well in collaboration with UiPath, a self-assessment tool. It's a test that, again, our viewers or listeners can do themselves. It takes 3 minutes, no more than that. And the test helps you to know in that automation for good journey that probably you've started or you're considering to start, where you are. And not just that, we also give recommendations about how to move forward. So again, I think it's a good way to start your journey, and I highly recommend it to all of you.
Yeah, I think a step-by-step guideline is always welcome. At least I'm one of these people who likes to be given advice on that one. Bobby, any sort of 1, 2, 3 sentence advice on someone who wants to start this but really does not know what to take to their boss tomorrow when they want to kick this off?
Well, the beautiful thing is automation is accessible to all, right? So one of the nice things about automation is that using like low code and no code technology, you can learn to automate and build your own robots and not be a IT engineer. So with that kind of democratization, you can go to our website and get trained on our academy for free, get certifications, build these digital skills that can help you automate. You can showcase it to your employer, and and obviously that becomes pretty valuable for you. And then your employer can realize how exciting this can be within their entire organization. And we do this, there's all kinds of training online. We have an entire platform. Business analysts can learn how to do process mining. You can learn how to build robots. You can learn how to accelerate, testing. So the platform, I should encourage you, is now become much broader than simply, building a robot. It's really about, automation fueled transformation. And so anyone who wants to begin this journey can start right now, uipath.com, and get started.
Well, thank you, both of you. I think we can agree here that, automation has not reached its full potential yet. And I think the key message here probably is that, if it's rooted in values that employees and other stakeholders can stand behind, then automation will actually lead to something that looks like a purpose-led company, which will lead to lots of business outcomes that we might not even be able to predict yet, including staff retention, productivity growth, etc. So with that, I'd like to thank you, both of you, for your time today. It was really interesting chatting, different views, strategic and from the front line. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Angela. And thank you very much.